All right, let's just take a look. Let's take a look. All right, we've seen your feedback on matches with wide skill variation. We want to talk about a few reasons that could be happening as well as our plans to address. So I don't know if that's what they're talking about, but the fact that I'm getting super, like, ranks are just everywhere. Ranks are completely meaningless. Like, even in GM top 500, I was getting Diamond Challenger tanks every single game. Like, every single game. Which means that their highest rank across all the roles was Diamond last season. We allow players to group together even when there's a difference in the MMR between party members. This is a major source of wide skill disparities in matches. That seems like you're shirking off a lot of the responsibility. That's not. Work on some changes that will match parties with similar MMR disparities together more frequently. We expect to noticeably reduce how often we make wide matches. Make it much less likely for a solo player or a party with a narrow skill disparity to end up in a match with a wide skill disparity. So interesting. So they're blaming this on people being able to group up. That's funny because I'm pretty sure that's not it at all. I'm pretty, because like most people are solo queuing, especially at those ranks. Most people are solo queuing, especially the tank players, dude. 100%. Often matches with the wide displayed skill tier difference still look very close when looking at the difference in MMR between the two teams. Partial rank reset at the beginning of the season may be exaggerated. This may be looking at some as lower than the actual rank. However, regardless of the seasonal reset, both skill tier and MMR can decay over time for players who are inactive for a considerable amount of time. This is why if you're going to have a decay, bro, if you're going to have a decay, actually decay their MMR, dude. Don't just like let them do, if they're not going to play for a while and they jump into a game all of a sudden and they haven't been playing for like a season or 2 seasons and it's been a long time, they're not going to be as good as that rank that they once were. That's what I'm saying. Their MMR needs to also decay, not just their visible rank. Players who return may see dramatic shifts to their skill tiers as they resume playing regularly, and the game becomes more certain of that player's current skill, which is fine, but it seems like it's not adjusting the MMR. You're having people that haven't played in seasons that, or maybe have played just enough to rank, get their like first rank on Overwatch 2, where they're like platinum instead of GM, and then just like throwing them in the next matches. Like if you're gonna have a decay, dude, you have to decay the MMR as well. Yeah, you can have it to where it's like, okay, well, if they're playing back to their normal rank, we're gonna bump up their MMR quicker, but you gotta test them at a lower rank, and they just don't. I just haven't seen that happen. It looks like they've just been throwing them back into their normal MMR ranks. Like there's been no decay. Seeing the community talk about inconsistent games or how some games feel incredibly one-sided, and that feedback was been helpful. Very one-sided games. At least season 2, it's been very bad. Season 1 wasn't too bad. Understanding what causes one-sided matches and how to reduce their frequency has become a major area of focus for our team. The tricky problem, because one-sided matches can happen in Overwatch, even between balanced teams. Understandable. So our first step has been to study the problem and understand the various factors. Honestly, tank players. Like tank has such a heavy influence in the game right now, and they've been doing, like, tanks have just been all over the place. Like, one team will have the actual tank that's been playing since Overwatch 2 came out. That's actually like Masters GM rank. And then the other team will have the Masters MMR that hasn't played since Overwatch 1 that just started to pick up Overwatch 2. And it's kind of like getting back into the game. So that's why you're getting all these weird ass matchups. Relatively, that's an extreme example, but it happens to where like the MMR system doesn't reflect what they're trying to do here. Here's the direction we're taking moving forward, what we're doing in season 3. Based on community feedback, we're implementing some updates to the matchmaker that try to place pairs of similar players with similar MMR in each role on either team. Cool. That's what it should have been in the first place. Literally, because if there's one tank, it's not 2-2-2 anymore. Or it's not like where all the roles kind of influence the match evenly. Tank influences the match greatly compared to the other roles, which means that you have to have even matchups between the tanks and then even matchups between everybody else. And if you don't get that matchup on the tanks, it's going to be a very, very big roll from one team to the other. The major change is the matchmaker, so we'll be actually monitoring for any unattended side effects. Seen feedback that I have to play as many as 26 matches to get an update has been discouraging. Yeah, that sucks. Starting with season 3, you'll now get a competitive update with every 5 wins and 15 losses. Okay, cool. 5 wins, whatever. Also updating the UI, so information about your progress towards a competitive update will also be viewable. Sick. Also beginning with our mid-season patch, top 500 players will see their top 500 leaderboard rank updated every match rather than in competitive updates. Okay, cool. Interesting. Okay, so here's the thing, when this updates, okay, so my rank's going to be gone. My player card will be gone. Long-term plans and goals. Long-term, we're planning to provide new ways for players to share a challenging competitive experience in Overwatch. Share more on this road, said, blah, blah, blah. Continue for feedback upon the overall ranked experience. Okay, I'd like to see it. Closing thoughts. Goal of matchmakers to make each game as fair as possible. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They just haven't, I don't know if they haven't figured out that the tank, which hopefully this is what they're trying to do to solve it. It's not like it used to be. Tanks are very, 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 very influential because it's one person and it's essentially a buffed person on your team. Your tank is a buffed version of everybody else. So if your tank throws, your whole team is going to lose. It's really hard to win a game with throwing tank. It's much easier to win a game with a throwing DPS or a support. And the fact that they haven't been balancing that out recently has been insane. You deliberately place players into winner queues and loser queues. There are no winner or loser queues in Overwatch. That's so good. Why do I sometimes have a large win or loss streak? Sometimes a player goes on a very long win-loss streak. It's indicated that their internal rating is not well calibrated. Okay, that makes sense. Which I kind of figured. Usually it's like if you go on a big losing streak, it's because they calibrated it like way too high for you and you're like going back down. Does my competitive rank affect matchmaking? We only create matches based on a player's MMR, not the visible competitive rank. Which this is the problem, dude. This is a problem. This is a problem. This is a problem. The MMR needs to reflect the actual competitive rank more closely. And this is where the frustration comes, is that the competitive rank is not reflected by the MMR and vice versa. So you're having these big disparities, whether they're intended or not. Players are seeing one rank when in reality they're playing a different rank. But honestly, that MMR is like not even ranked that's up to date. It's like out of practice. It's like people that don't actually have that MMR. It's just the MMR that's left over and what you think they have. What is the quality of my matches go down at the start of season, the beginning of the season? When season 2 went live, a lot of players who stopped playing during season 1 came back. So the population of players playing ranked changed dramatically overnight. Ratings are a measure of your skill relative to the rest of the players you interact with. Even that causes the population to change a lot, result in some turbulence. Wow, interesting. Interesting. So wait, you're telling me that players that stop playing mid-season 1 and then come back season 2 have an effect on the game? Interesting. So it's almost like if players haven't played in a little bit, their skill goes down a little bit. Interesting. So wouldn't that make sense if there was an MMR decay if you didn't play for a certain amount of time, not just a rank decay, an MMR decay? Wouldn't that make sense? Right? To reflect the average amount that people like lose skill wise when they're not playing the game for long enough. Interesting. Wow. So they mention it here, but they don't even mention it above. Interesting, Overwatch. Very interesting. Can we do a full rating reset? A full rating reset wouldn't create a great experience, that it would mean throwing out all the knowledge we have about players. So it would cause new players to be matched against Overwatch League pros, which is fun for about 30 seconds. We've experienced this ourselves in internal playtest. Why am I hard stuck at a low rating that doesn't reflect my skill? Oh, this is gonna be a good answer. Why am I hard stuck at a low rating? Ultimately, the only way you can increase your rating is to win more matches than you lose. Since we're putting any given player on a random team with 9 other players with enough matches, that player's contributions are the only constant factor throughout, so their rating should end up reflecting their skill. I talk about this all the time. I'm saying ignore your teammates. If you're actually good, if you're good enough to carry up to the rank over time, your rank will reflect it. I agree with that. That's such a funny, straightforward answer, and I love it. There is an interesting phenomenon. The matches become less predictable the lower the average rating of a match. Predictability is a measure of how likely the favorite team is to win because 2 teams have identical ratings, which is interesting because I see that shit happen all the time. GM compared to Diamond. Diamond is a coin toss to me, dude. It's absolute coin toss. GM, on the other hand, makes a lot more sense. Whether you win or you lose, the team that played better wins. The team that played worse loses. Diamond, it's like, fuck, I don't even know, dude. I'm just going in and I'm just like, whatever, dude. I'm just gonna play and hopefully we win. That shit, I've been saying that for years now, man. Diamond is disgusting. I can't even imagine what it's like even lower than that. So you don't take the number of eliminations, damage dealt, healing provided, or any other scoreboard stats to adjust my MMR after each match. In Overwatch 2, your MMR adjustment after each match is not impacted by your performance in each match, regardless of your skill tier. This is for a few reasons. We don't want players to be focused on doing things other than trying to focus on the objectives and win the match. This is huge, dude. Chat, this is giant. Bro, they have never, ever, ever mentioned this before. Interesting. They have never once said that your MMR does not reflect your stats in game. And this is good. This is a good thing. You want it to be mainly focused on them winning a game. Now, whether this is true or not, I have no idea. I don't think they're giving us the whole story here. They say dealing the most damage or getting kills won't help your team if your actions don't help them push the payload to capture a control point. Some heroes, especially those in the support role, it can be challenging to determine if those numbers they produce reflect your skill. Bro, they have never mentioned this before in Overwatch. And this is something I've been asking for. They say this is the truth. I'm really hoping it is, but it's saying your MMR only reflects your ability to win games. Why do streamers and pro players often have such long queue times and often end up in poor quality matches? Perhaps the largest factor that influences match quality is just the population of players at that skill level. Top 500 is a small population compared to the millions of players lower ranks, which I figured, that they've talked about that. That's interesting. Did you read through the whole thing yet?
I just read the TLDR because I don't give a shit what they say, to be honest with you.
Bro, this is the first time they've talked about this before. At the bottom of like the Q&A, they said that your stats do not affect your MMR at all. Your MMR is completely based off your ability to win games. Do you believe that?
No, for one reason. I was watching Yeedle. He was doing RAM to GM only, or RAM only to GM. And dude, he got put into GM games after like 10 wins. He was literally playing GM lobbies in 10 wins.
Yeah, exactly.
Like if a gold player, no offense, gold players, but like if a gold player went on a 10-game win streak, I would be shocked if they were throwing you in GM games.
Yeah.
So no, I don't know if that's entirely true.
That's when I read that, I was like, dude, that's insane. Because that's what I've been asking for, is because like stats is a really hard thing to like balance out. I mean, you can use it as an indicator, but like for certain heroes, depending on like the meta, like some heroes aren't going to get high stats. Like for like when I was playing Mei against like Doom Tracer, like I was still winning games, but my stats were extremely low to what they were previous. And I was like, there's no way that they don't factor in like stats between players of like what they're getting on certain heroes and like certain damage or healing or objective, whatever it is. There's no way.
I'm skeptical on that one.
I read it and I was like, I don't know how much truth is there. I feel like they're not giving us the whole story on that. But if that's true, like, that's massive.
Like Yeedle literally did like 2 sets of placements and was in GM lobbies. Like, yeah. I mean, like granted, he was like, probably 14-0. I think he was 14-0. So maybe, I don't know.
When I did unranked to GM with Mei, I played, my first game was actual gold players. Like we were keeping track of this. My first game was actual gold players. My next game was diamond master players immediately. Like literally immediately. I was like, there's thinking about that, like how do you not, like, yes, I won one game. Yeah. And now my MMR is like high. That's why I was just like, I think I'm calling bullshit on that one.
Yeah, that's kind of sus.
Interesting.